All right, let's jump right into it. Today, we're unpacking Chapter 10 of Principles of Management, and we're focusing entirely on a concept that literally makes or breaks an organization's success: controlling. Yeah, I know control can sometimes sound like a heavy, restrictive word, right? But I want you to completely reframe how you think about it. Instead of a boss breathing down your neck, think of management control as a high-tech GPS navigation system for a business. It's the essential tool that keeps an entire organization safely and efficiently on its strategic route. So let's fire up the engine and get started.
Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, demystifying management control. Second, the four-step control process. Third, managing different resource types. And fourth, the theories behind controlling.
Section 1. Demystifying management control. Let's shift our perspective here on what control actually means in the business world.
So what exactly is management control? Well, think about it for a second. Have you ever set a personal goal, like, I don't know, a fitness target or a financial savings goal, only to wake up months later and realize you were completely off track? You kind of sit there wondering, wait, what went wrong here? You know, that exact feeling of drift happens to massive corporations too. And without a system to catch that drift, companies fail.
And that is exactly why the main purpose of control is narrowing the gap between planned performance and actual performance. Think back to that GPS analogy. When you type in a destination, that is your planned performance. As you drive, your actual location is constantly being tracked. If you take a wrong turn, your GPS doesn't yell at you, it simply recalculates to get you back to where you need to be. Management control is exactly that. It's not about micromanagement or stifling creativity. It's simply the organizational GPS that constantly checks your current location against your planned route.
Section 2. The four-step control process. Let's see how we transition this from theory to action.
To actually keep a business on track, managers follow a strict four-step sequence. Step 1 is setting standards, which are derived straight from your goals. I mean, you can't measure success if you haven't defined what success looks like. Step 2 is measuring actual performance, asking, where are we right now? Step 3 is evaluating deviations. This means looking really closely at the gap between Step 1 and Step 2. Are we falling short? Are we overperforming? And finally, Step 4 is rectifying deviations, taking the corrective actions required to get the train back on the tracks. And this brilliantly illustrates how the control process is absolutely not a straight line. It's a continuous, dynamic loop. Once you rectify a deviation in Step 4, it feeds right back into Step 1. Your corrective action might actually involve realizing your initial standards were completely unrealistic in the first place, meaning you have to adjust the goals themselves. It is a constantly breathing ecosystem of feedback.
Moving right along to Section 3, managing different resource types. A business has to navigate the control of four main types of resources to function effectively. You've got physical resources, like your inventory and equipment. You've got financial resources, information resources, and of course, human resources. While all four are completely vital for survival, for this explainer, we're going to zoom in specifically on the financial side of the equation.
When it comes to financial resources, the absolute primary navigation tool at any manager's disposal is the budget. But listen, a budget isn't just a spreadsheet of limitations. It's actually a predictive model. It essentially sets the financial standards in Step 1 of our control loop, so that later you can measure every single dollar spent or earned against it.
And budgets come in a few distinct flavors. Financial budgets focus heavily on cash flow and capital expenditures, literally the lifeblood of the company. Operational budgets look at revenue and day-to-day operations. But here's the really fascinating part. Non-financial budgets. These cover diverse aspects of the organization that aren't expressed in dollars and cents. Things like production volumes measured in units, or even time projections for major projects. It just goes to show that controlling resources goes way beyond just counting money.
Section 4. The theories behind controlling. Let's look at the foundational ideas that explain exactly why these tools work.
Our first foundational framework is the feedback control model. This is really the bedrock of everything we've talked about today. It simply compares actual performance with your desired standards using the resulting feedback to highlight any discrepancies. Without this feedback loop, an organization is essentially flying blind.
Next up is goal setting and achievement theory. This actually stems from a concept known as management by objectives, or MBO. It asserts that controlling is literally impossible without clear goal setting. You cannot hold a department or a company accountable if the target is blurry, right? Controlling heavily relies on measuring actual performance against very specific parameters.
And how do we make sure those parameters are crystal clear? Within that framework, objectives absolutely must be SMART: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. You've probably heard that acronym a million times, but it is deeply woven into control theory. If your standard in Step 1 isn't SMART, your evaluation in Step 3 is going to be completely useless.
Now, our third theory is incredibly important because it reminds us that organizations are made of flesh and blood, not just spreadsheets. Human relations theory emphasizes that controlling measures absolutely must consider employee attitudes, motivation, and satisfaction. Let's be real. If you implement a rigid, draconian control system that alienates your workforce, productivity is just going to plummet.
Finally, we have total quality management, or TQM. This theory elevates controlling to an art form centered on continuous improvement and intense customer focus. TQM relies heavily on data-driven decisions and statistical process control to constantly monitor quality. It's not just about catching errors. It is about building a culture where every single employee is involved in constantly raising the bar. When we pull all of these concepts together, there's a really beautiful duality to controlling. It's broadly considered the final step in the fundamental management process, but ultimately, control is not just the end of the line. The data and the feedback you gather seamlessly loop back around to become the starting point for all future strategic planning. Your past corrections literally become your future blueprints.
So controlling is definitely not a one-size-fits-all deal. It requires a tremendous amount of flexibility. The real question is, how will you draw on these theories to program your own organizational GPS moving forward? Something to think about as you evaluate the feedback loops in your own work.